Welcome everybody to Krystal, Kyle, and Friends. So yeah, this is. I think this is the first time people have seen you and me together, with me looking like Eminem's drug dealer son.
In the new hair era, the new Hera.
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, I already, I talked about this publicly already, but the reason I did this is because Krystal and I are being very cringe, as the kids would say, very head ass, as the kids would say, and we're going as Zach and Kelly from Saved by the Bell for Halloween.
It's both dated and yes, all of those things, cringe and all of those things, but totally. We like it. So
the wig was more like Trump. A wig came with the costume, but it was more Trumpy. And I said,
the hair was way too long on the wig.
It was terrible.
Didn't look like it was not Zach Morris at all.
No, not at all. So now this is Zach Morris now. I'm Zach Morris.
I have to tell you, I am kind of proud of myself because me and Ella, my oldest daughter, with help from our friend Glaucia, advice, counsel on the phone from our friend Glaucia, we're the ones that did it. There was some pain involved, right, Kyle? The bleach, a lot of head.
Pain. Oh my God, I was on. My head was burning like I dipped it in acid. I kind of did. Like bleach is just fucking like terrible.
And after the bleaching, which we had to do twice because your hair is dark, it was kind of had like an orange. It wasn't bad, but it was kind of orangey. It had the like brassy tones to it. So then we did the toner. And I have to say, like, I actually think it's a kind of a nice color. I like it. I'm proud of myself. I think I did a good job.
Now let me ask you, and remember, there are thousands of people who are going to watch this. So they'll be able to read your reaction. Are you just saying you like it because it's me? Or are you saying you like it because you actually like it? Like, are you just trying to be nice? Or is it just like, no, I actually do like it?
No, I actually like it. I don't know if I like it better than your normal hair, but I think it looks good as a change. Like, yeah, it's nice. I think it brings out your eyes. That's what I would say.
Thank you, baby. I feel like Zach Morris for real now.
You're living the dream.
I'm living the dream.
When you had a crush on Kelly Kapowski when you were little too. So
it's my first crush.
Live that dream too.
That's right. It's my first crush. So you're my first crush.
We're so adorable. What can I say?
Massively cringe. But yeah, it'll be fun dressing up like I'm 8 and doing stuff with you on Halloween. So anyway, we have an interesting interview today. We're talking to Alexandra Hunt, who had a wee bit of a viral Twitter thread the other day. Mm-hmm. So first of all, just tell everybody who Alexandra is and then give her thread so people know what the deal was.
Yeah, so she's a former congressional candidate. She lost in a primary, and it's, I think, like a Philly congressional district. She's a Democrat, and more on the like Democratic Socialist or Bernie aligned left side of things. And she actually made waves during her congressional campaign to start with because part of what she ran on was the fact that she had been a stripper during college. She's very upfront about that, talked about her experience, and she talked about wanting to decriminalize sex work and also take the stigma out of sex work. So again, she's very like forward with this messaging, and it had all kinds of like impacts on her personally, which we'll talk to her about. But most recently, the Twitter thread that created a whole shit show on Twitter is the following. She said, "Young men aren't having sex. Nearly a third of men under 30 have not had sex." Technically, it was in the last year, but anyway. "And a higher percent do not have as much sex as they'd like. Not exactly surprising, but this kind of statistic is a sign of much deeper problems. Our society criminalizes sex and sweeps it under the rug. The consequences are straightforward. There is more violence. Since platforms like Craigslist were banned from advertising sex, serious violent crime against all women, not just sex workers, has increased by nearly 1/5. And men who do not have sex suffer. They are less likely to be part of the labor force, more likely to experience depression, nihilism, and other mental health issues. The Me Too movement accomplished so much, and we have to take the next step, normalizing having healthy, positive, consensual sex, decriminalizing sex work, funding sex education, and creating outreach programs that help young people develop healthy sexual habits. We should be moving toward a right to sex. People should be able to have sex when they feel they want to, and we need to develop services that meet people's needs without attaching the baggage of shame or criminalization. So let's talk about sex." That was the part in particular that really caused a backlash. And she actually, after this thread went viral and people were having all kinds of thoughts and feelings about it, she walked back from this idea of like a quote unquote right to sex or sex for all kind of a thing, because there were people that were reading into that like forced sex and rape and sexual. She's a sexual assault survivor herself. So she clearly like that was never her intent. But that was the part that she, after facing a backlash, she sort of walked back from and said she would have changed her language around that part. But there you go. That's the thread.
Yeah. So it's a complex conversation with a lot of moving parts to talk about, right? But if you ask me to just give you the basic Cliff Notes version of what I think the best thing to do moving forward is, I think legalize, tax, and regulate sex work nationwide, right? And outside of that, we already have a system where pornography is legal. So if you legalize, tax, and regulate sex work, and you have, legal pornography available basically everywhere, I mean, that's as far as I'm willing to go to say, great.
Yeah. You're not down for sex vouchers or...
Yeah, no, I mean, look.
A public sex option.
It's not, my 85-year-old old lady grandma neighbor shouldn't have to pay for Dave down the street to get his nut off. I mean, is that controversial? I really don't think that's controversial.
I don't think that's controversial. And by the way, I think we'll talk to her, but I think she, more or less agrees with your view. And to be honest with you, I really think the freak out over what she said was less about a poorly chosen worded sentence or whatever, and more about a lot of discomfort with talking about sex at all, number one, and acknowledging that men are in crisis in any sort of way.
Yeah.
And so
I think
we'll dig into that with her, because there's this, there is this really big, you're almost accused of being a right winger if you even acknowledge that there are any issues for men, especially white men whatsoever. And so I really think people's desire to interpret her comments in the worst possible light or interpretation, I really think it comes from that place more than anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do need people on the left acknowledging that there are a specific set of issues that are faced by, young men in particular. And if we don't talk about that, we don't provide our own solutions, then of course you're going to have the Manosphere people, the red pill people, they're going to step in and say, we are the only ones talking to the concerns of young men. So, pick us. And that's a gateway into right-wing politics. And I don't agree with that. I don't want those people to go down that path. I think most of the answers provided by the red pill people and the Manosphere people, it's just, they're bad answers. It's vapid. The life they're preaching is not a life that's going to give you any semblance of happiness. So it's a real issue.
Nor be good for society, really.
Right.
I mean, here's another thing I wanted to ask you about, Kyle, because one of the other directions of the more religious, right? Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro had this conversation about porn is destroying our society. Do you think, though, obviously I'm in favor of porn being available as it is now, but do you think that is part of why men are having less sex? Because there's just a more of an ability to scratch the itch without having to put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable. Do you think that is part of the story of these numbers?
It's possible that that's part of the story, but I would argue the extent to which that is true, then the lack of sex is not a problem. Because those men that are actively choosing porn over real life intimacy, that is a choice. And that is a choice that some men will make. Because, look, life's complicated, life's messy, a lot of stuff goes on. It's a totally whole new deal for you to get your shit together, be presentable, take a shower, put on something nice, wine and dine somebody 2 or 3 times to, try to develop some sort of relationship and eventually get intimate with that person. There's some percentage of men that are going to actively choose porn over that. And so if that is true, which I'm kind of agnostic on whether or not that's true. If it is true, then, for those guys, it's not a problem. It's a choice. It's the people who want to have sex, but are not having sex. That's the problem, in my opinion.
Gotcha. That makes sense to me.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I buy that. I mean, I think I mostly buy that, I guess I would say. But, and certainly, like I said, I'm not in favor of cracking down on porn or whatever. But I think in general, people are happier when they have real human connection and real human intimacy. I'm not going to be patriarchal and force that upon them if they choose, I want to opt out. I want to just feel comfortable and not scared and not vulnerable and whatever. But, this goes down to like a deeper conversation about what sort of societal structures would help to create the confidence where you feel like you can put yourself out there, where you feel like you have a chance of success, where you feel like you're not just going to be like humiliated and have your heart broken. Because there's part of that that's individual and personal, and there's part of that that's very clearly societal when you have generations where, it's almost impossible to own a home, where wages are low, where every milestone for millennials and Gen Z is like set back from where it was for their parents' generation. Like that to me all plays into it.
Well, that's why this conversation is messy, right? Because you're 100% right about that. But it's hard for people want to think in like a binary way, in a black and white way. And so it's hard for them to conceptualize of that very basic fact that what has led to this problem is an amalgamation of a whole bunch of different factors, including, systemic factors, economic factors, social factors, cultural factors, individual factors. Like it's all of these things in one. So how do you disaggregate what's more important and less important and all that? And I mean, my answer is effectively, you don't. Like all of it is true, all of it is real, and you have to react accordingly. So yeah, ideally, we live in a world where it wasn't late stage capitalism. Everybody has a decent job that pays well. They have their health care. They have a roof over their head. They have a thriving community and social life. They have a hobby that they're really into or a job that they're really into or whatever. And then in a situation like that, yeah, people would be a lot more comfortable just sort of saying, it's on you, bro. If you're not getting laid, that's on you, dog. Like, look, you got everything going for you right now. And if it's not happening, look in the fucking mirror. I think people on the left in particular are hesitant to say that given all the social and systemic factors. But, what I'd say is we can walk and chew gum at the same time in the sense that we could try to fix the economic problems, the social problems, all the systemic failures, while at the same time, basically filling that void, which right now the Manosphere people are filling, which is like, but also, yeah, let me talk to you and keep it real for a minute and tell you at a personal level, an individual level, a psychological level, how you can improve and up your chances of real connection and intimacy with women, right?
Yeah, because to not do that is to basically deny people agency. I mean, that's also incredibly disempowering if you're like, well, capitalism sucks. What are you going to do? Guess you're going to be lonely forever. Like, that's not right. All that particularly useful, ultimately, is it?
No, that's 100% right. And I guess final point I'll make before we bring her in is that, and I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I think it's probably likely that widespread pornography has a lot of positive social effects that haven't been measured yet. Like, for example, a decrease in crime, a decrease in sexual assault. So I think that even though the concern is real, the one about like, oh my God, young men aren't having nearly as much sex. Could you imagine a world wherein like they weren't having the sex and then also there wasn't easily available pornography? That is a world I don't want to live in. Pent up, young, aggressive. Yes, pent up, young, aggressive men. Yikes on that one,
Yeah, but that actually raises a bigger important point, which is like, even if you're like, fuck men, I hate men, fuck the patriarchy, they're terrible, they need to do better. Like, it doesn't go well in societies where young men are like disconnected, unhappy, like not forming social bonds. Like, that doesn't go well for anyone in society. So, but ultimately I would think and hope that as people on the left who care about people's dignity, people's worth, and human suffering, that this would be a problem that people would want to pay attention to.
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.